everybody, good morning. This is Jean here, Jean Truelove from Truelove Quilts for You. I'm working on a tutorial today. Our much anticipated multiple 9-patch making ways to do this for my Jean's Block Party 2021, my dear Jean Quilt. Last week we were doing the 9-patch 3-grid, the double bow block, right? It was a simple 9-patch but with 4 snowballed corners to make that little double bow. So I'm not concentrating this week on how to make a 9-patch. Refer back to that one, forget the snowballed corners, and that's your 9-patch. Your three in the top row, 3 in the middle row, 3 in the bottom row. Sew them together. You know how to do that, matching those 4 intersections. And I show you behind me, if you had cut out 9 little squares, how to put together one 9-patch. But also behind me are the way I've made this tutorial is how from 2 strip sets, how I show you in-depth tutorial how to get 5 blocks from 2 colors, just 2 colors of fabric that you would cut from either yardage or jelly roll or fat quarters. And then I show you how to get 4 blocks using scraps and a neutral background, okay? In a strip set method. It's a little bit unconventional, my strip set, my scrappy looking here that I got 4 blocks out of. But again, I explain it to you. My cutting instructions are just that. They just sort of tell you how to cut the fabric. Again, I have shown you, but then I always put up little cutting instructions. They're by no means the instructions or the pattern how to do it. You really have to pay attention to my tutorial to follow, because I'm doing sort of 2 big methods, and then of course just the 9-patch, which I'm going to go back and show you now the blocks that I've made and explain it to you. So that's what we're doing now. I am making 16 of my scrappy blocks here for my quilt. Again, refer back to the intro if you're new. I'm doing a medallion style quilt, a large center block, borders around, and then my idea is to put my 9 patches around my center medallion. Hence, I'm starting out, or I'm making 16. I have yet to make 16, so I don't know. I'm just showing how at this point I made 4 and this point I made 5, how to do that. But by all means, don't stress yourself out. You can, it's not, we're not making 16 things this week. I may end up if I come back in my sewing room, but you can figure it out, because the way I've done it is you can maybe just do 4 at a time and have a relax. Don't want you to stress out. We have a long time to be making these blocks en masse. But this is the tutorial for that 9-patch, my 3-grid 9-patch, simple, but making them in a much quicker and more efficient way than cutting out teeny tiny bits. If you want to, I'll show you again how to cut out. If you want to do 1 block at a time, have at it. So I do hope you enjoy this tutorial. It's a little bit long-winded. Of course it is. But I hope I covered everything. If you have any questions, comment below, and I will surely get to you and answer them. So okay, without any further ado, 9 patches, here they come. All right, see ya. Now what I've done here is I have the 3 ways that I've made a 9-patch. This would be the one for me with the gray and white, and I also have my black dots on white background. But just for a demonstration, this is a scrappy 9-patch. Okay, now I've not put this together, but you know how to do this now. You just sew the rows, the top row, the middle row, the bottom row together. You set those seams, and then you come back and you sew that seam and that seam, nesting your seams together. That is one way, that is one patch that you can make, okay? Now, I'm showing you here how I made 5 blocks with a 2-color strip set. Mind you, there's another, basically it's a green and pink, okay? I ran out of the pink. So just think of that as 2 colors, a dark green and a hot pink. And out of 2 strip sets, which I show you how to do using 22-inch strips, I've made 5 blocks at one time, okay? Now, with another strip set, using scraps, or not scraps, but controlled 2.5-inch by 3-inch squares, which are my K facet fabrics. I will be putting these 4 into my final quilt here. This is just for demonstration purposes. I got 4 solid blocks. I got 4 blocks out of my my 2 strip sets. So again, which I demonstrate with 2 units left over, which I can go on to my next my next blocks. Now again, these are just for demonstration. I will be making more blocks with my background, with my black on white dots, with my scrappy. That's the look I'm going to be making. So I will be making 8 of these right now, this colorway with my scraps or my K facet fabrics in my gray. I'll be making 8 of them, and then I will be making 8 of the K facet fabrics with the black on the white dotted fabrics. Again, out of my strip set, which I show you, I demonstrate, I've made 4 of them. Out of my strip set, I show you, I've made 5 of them. And then if you want to go and cut out all your fabrics together, you cut out 9 2.5-inch squares and you sew them together. But again, this is a quicker method. If you just use 2 fabrics for your ending up a checkerboard. Again, I explained that I don't know whether I'm going to be putting sashing in between or just having it as a checkerboard effect. I probably will, though, be putting sashing in between. But when I do put the sashing, as you can see, I'm going to continue the neutral pattern, all the way around my center medallion. The one method that we can use to put together a 9-patch sort of en masse is to have strip sets. Now, I ran out of this fabric, so I'm just using this one. But as you can see, I have made 2 strip sets. I actually had pulled this from my stash for demonstration purposes from jelly rolls. Now, if you were using jelly rolls, your jelly roll strip has been cut from, what is it, the 42, 44, has been cut in half, okay? And I end up with a piece of fabric here about 22 inches, okay? Now, there's the selvages on that one end, okay? I've been very, very careful to make both strip sets opposite. So if we were going to be putting together this block, which I'll show you at the end when I put it together, there's going to be alternating the light, the dark, the light, the dark in our 9-patch. You will see that as it goes along. Now, I've made sure that I have cut 2.5-inch strips, perfect 2.5-inch strips. Okay, these are jelly rolls, but if you're using your yardage or you're using even fat quarters, you want to go on the 22-inch side of your fat quarter and cut 2.5-inch strips. All right, perfectly 2.5-inch strips. I have sewn together my 3 strip sets. One strip set is, for lack of better, light, dark, light. The second strip set is dark, light, dark. Okay, that's to get our 9-patch. Sewn these together with a perfect 1/4 inch, okay? Perfect 1/4 inch. There's my 1/4 inch. Now, what have I done? As you can see here, on this one is the dark. My dark is in the center. I have pressed and set my seams, perfect 1/4 inch, and I have ironed them, pressed them to the inside. I've pressed them to the dark. I've pressed them into the dark because even cutting these, a lot of them, we want to nest our seams together when we go to sew our units, okay? So I've pressed them to the dark, and this one, again, what have I done? I've pressed these to the dark, okay? The light one is in the middle, perfect 1/4 inch. Now, we're going to start cutting these into we're going to what's called sub-cutting. Now, I've laid them like this, but I'm going to just be cutting 1 strip set at a time. I want to be careful because sometimes they can get a bit skewed if you just keep cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting. You want to always make sure your strip set is nice and straight on your ruler and on your cutting mat here, okay? So I can see my strip set pretty much along the way is nice and straight. I'm bringing my ruler here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just slice off the selvage edge here, okay? I put the selvage in one end and I'm going to slice that off. Now again, we are coming back to my 2 ruler method. I just find this easy. I'm going to move my ruler along here, making sure that my strip set is nice and straight on both rulers here, My lines are nice and straight, and I'm going to find my 2.5 inch line on my ruler, okay? There's my 2.5 inch. Everything's nice and straight, nice and square, and I slice. And I'm just going to continue making 2.5 inch units. So out of my one strip set, I've gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 units of the dark light. Okay, and I'm going to do the exact same thing to my light dark. And there are my 8 light dark, okay? Now we've not sewn any little tiny pieces together doing it this way. My 9 patch. There you go. There's my 9 patch. If we were cutting this block out, we would be cutting out 5 dark, as it were, and 4 light. Okay. So now, the way we can make it now is we don't have to cut those individual pieces, and boom, we have 1, 2. Okay, how we put them together. Again, it's just a matter of when we go to put these together, we are just going to be nesting this seam here, okay? You're just going to nest that seam there and that seam there. And because we have ironed these so beautifully, these intersections here, just the 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, are going to nest together beautifully. And at the end of the day, you should have your ta-da moment of a 6.5 inch block. I'll do these and see if I have my 6.5 inch block. Now, when we go to put this together, this is where I'm not quite sure if I'm going to have a sashing. Is that still on? Oh, yeah, sorry, I thought my camera clicked off. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to have a sashing around my thing, but say I've made my center unit here, okay? And I want to, and these are sewn together. Now, as you can see, look what I've created. If we just put them together, if we just put our blocks together, can you see? There is a fairly quick checkerboard around my block. Now, I do know that I'm going to be putting together 4 at least 4 around my center medallion. Okay, there's 4 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4. I do not know whether I'm going to be putting sashing in between the blocks. Okay, I don't know that right now. But right now, as you can see, all I'm doing right now at this point, I'm going to be making 16 blocks. Let me just pull this back. I'm going to be making 16 of these blocks, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I have an extra one here. I'm going to be making 16 blocks, but in my fabrics, but now that's one way that you could make basically a 2-color checkerboard, as it were, or 2-color 9 patches, okay? If you have a dark and a light and a dark and a light, okay? We can chain piece these units together and make quite a few blocks at the same time, okay? I have my 3 blocks set up here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to be very careful. I'm pulling the first, I have 3 blocks. You can't see, 1, 2, 3. I'm going to be pulling the first 2 blocks that are on the right-hand side of my block, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put these together like this. I'm going to nest this seam right there and perfect quarter of an inch, okay? Because we've cut and pressed them. No fiddling around with little tiny pieces. Okay, now I'm going to keep my needle down. I'm going to grab my second block, being careful of the configuration, and I'm going to do the same thing. However you want to keep track of your blocks is up to you, but this is how I chain piece quite a few of them together. Again, put that down, quarter of an inch. I've matched and nested my seams pretty good. Needle down, and I'm going to grab the next two to the right for my third block, and I'm going to just chain piece this one along. Separate my chains, and there again, in this, you've watched me make 9 patches. In the space it takes to make 1 9 patch, there are 3 of them. There are 3 9 patches right there. So if you do it that way with 2 fabrics, it's a doddle. It's so easy. Now what I would recommend is that you just if you're going to be doing 2 fabrics, you can figure out that this way of cutting with those 2 strip sets of 22 inches, they made 5 blocks. So then you can figure out, I can't figure it out, you can figure that out. If you're using your 2 fabrics, okay? So what I would do is I would make your 5 blocks, and then I would do it again. But if you guys know math and everything, by all means, go over and cut all of your units and make 16 blocks. So as you saw, I just took these off of my sewing machine, and I've just ironed them. I've ironed them, I've set my seams, my backs look as good as my front. Everything is pressed really nice. No little tucks or anything. Now, I want to see, I've made 3 of them again in the same length of time it would take to make 1. Here's my 6.5 inch. See if I have several ta-da moments. Oh, they're a little bit big, which is good, which is absolutely fine. They're a little bit big on that side and that side. That's right in the middle, like 3 1/4 is right in the middle. And it's quite a little bit big actually, but maybe because this was the jelly rolls. I did not cut these 2.5 inch strips. Maybe it would have been a little bit better. But there is a perfect 6.5 inch unfinished. This one. Or from your yardage. This way I'm going to be doing, this is my quilt. I believe these are my 9 patch that I'm going to be using in my Cafe Facet fabrics that are going to be surrounding my Dresden plate. Now I'm going to have 2 blocks different, the dark and the light and the light and the dark. But instead of my background light and dark, they're going to be a neutral, but one's going to be gray and white, and one's going to be white and black. White, the black on the black dots, okay? So for now, what I have done is I have cut out from my yardage, 2.5 inch strips. So I now have, put this aside, because I'm going to make one exactly like this, but I'm going to be using this background, this neutral. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of fabric here, okay? 2.5 inch strips. Now, what I've also done is I have used, I have cut out from my fat quarters. I placed about 4 fat quarters on on top of each other, and then from the bottom corner, I cut out a 2.5 inch by 3 inch rectangle. Okay, it's a 2.5 inch by 3 inch rectangle. 2.5 inch by 3 inch. This is a wonderful way. You need yardage and scraps, okay? And cut out a million 2.5 inch by 3 inch rectangles. Now, I'm not telling you right at this moment to cut out all of your strips and all of your scraps. I don't do it that way. I get a little bit confused, you know, like, oh, cut 162, blah, blah, blah. I don't do it that way. I make up what I'm going to be making up, and then I figure out, okay, now I'll make up some more. I see where I'm going with these blocks, okay, if I like them. So what I've done is I've just right now, I've just cut out these, however many are there, and my strip sets, my strips here. Now, as we were making our strip set for our 2 colors, what we are going to be doing is we are going to be having to put, we're going to be making a strip set. Now, I didn't show you when I sewed my strip set because that was simple, right? I sewed the green, the pink, and the green with a 1/4 inch seam. This is a little bit different, okay? This is a little bit different. I'm going to put this aside for now because actually I'll put 1 here. We're going to need 3. Now, we have our 2.5 inch strips. Okay, now this, I want my scrappy pieces in here. Okay? Well, you're like, well, it's not a strip. It's a bunch of hunks of pieces of fabric, right? Now, we got 8 subcuts out of that strip set. This one we're going to get 7 because I have erred on the larger side. Okay? I have erred on the larger side. So what we're going to be picking these pieces up. It's 2.5 inches by 3 inches. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the 3 inch side and we're going to place it down on our top piece of fabric there. And we're just going to, pretty sides together, just scratch them together. That's the 3 inch. The 3 inch side is going along here. This you may want to pin. I'm going to. You see what I've done? I have everything laid out visually in front of me. So there's 1, let me get my pins out here. Now I'm going to go over to my machine and I'm going to stitch down, right down along there. So here is my strip set, my first half of my strip set. And what I've done is I've just pinned together my little 3 inch units along here, okay? I'm going to start that 1/4 inch, being very careful to keep my 3 inch mark, my 3 inch piece of fabric along this side. And I'm just going to almost, as it was, chain piece them, because you have a little gap there. Just chain piece these right along on this strip set. It's slightly unconventional to do it this way, but it makes a scrappy 9 patch, and you haven't had to, well, you have had to cut out the smaller pieces, but not teeny tiny pieces, not 9 individual pieces. We're just doing a strip set. I have pinned these together, doing a perfect 1/4 inch. Pinch and pull. These are the units that are going in. These are the scrappy units with my neutral on the outside, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my other neutral, and I'm just going to line these up. As you can see, okay, what I've done is I'm lining this up perfectly. I'm not rushing anything. This is nice and straight. These are nice and square. I'm just laying that there, okay? I have the same gap here as here. Just take your time. And again, we're sewing the 3 inch line right along the edge of our sash, our other piece here. Just holding them together. By all means, if you want to go over and if you want to pin these again, but I find if I just eyeball it, place that down, hold everything nicely. And again, we will make up for any discrepancies if they go a little bit crooked in the cutting. Everything is nice and straight. They're not skewed. And we have a scrappy strip set. You see that? See, I'm just pulling that down, pulling that back, making sure that this edge here is lined up with my 3-inch edge there. We have perfect 2.5 inch, a perfect 2.5 inch, 2.5 inch, 2.5 inch, 2.5 inch. Okay, just flop that over there. Line it up like that. Have your gap. Don't be pulling it up here. Don't be doing that. Just slowly, slowly line up the edge with the edge of your 3-inch piece underneath. If it's easier for you to do it on the other side, by all means, I just fold that over like that. I have the same gap, and then I just lay that there. I'm not stretching anything, I'm not pulling anything. And then right off, pinch, and as you can see, selvage to selvage. Now there is a strip set. And it's all sort of like, what? It's all been shredded to bits, it looks, right? Now we're going to go over, and I'm going to very carefully press these seams. I'm going to set them. I'm going to set all these little individual seams this way and this way, and then I'm going to press these into the middle, into the dark. You see how they want to go anyway? I'm just going to very, very carefully, not stretching, not skewing anything, press these. That's the very important thing. Then we're going to subcut these into our 2.5 inch units. So again, as it's come off my ironing board, I'm just going to set that seam, those seams there of the scrappy bits, my 3-inch bits, set this seam here. Just put everything in its place. The beauty in this comes from our cutting. And then I'm going to lift it up. And from the inside, I'm going to just nudge. I'm going to just give this a little bit of a spray. I'm just going to nudge very carefully, taking my time with this, almost like each individual bit. Just push that down to the middle. Just going to take my time. Now I'm going to take my ruler, my double rulers. Now I'm going to cut this edge off. Here, is it in the frame? Yeah, hold on. Yeah, I'm going to cut this selvage off over here. Making sure, again, just like I did with my other strips, that everything is lined up. These are beautifully lined up. Cut that selvage off there, and then just cut that one, find the 2.5 inch, and there's my 2.5 inch unit. You see? There. There's a perfect little unit. Okay? Now, I'm going to just trim that little tiny bit off. Right there. Take that little bit, and then I'm going to find my 2.5 inch. And I'll just continue having so there's a little tiny bit of waste. I'm perfectly fine with that, because now I have the one side, and it's all different. It's all lovely different scraps without having to cut out a million pieces. Just be a little bit more careful, because how many blocks we're going to get out of this? We might get four blocks, and it's just you know, almost the same amount of time as making 1 or 2. So now what I'm going to do, and I won't bore you, is I will take this piece now. Okay, I'll take because this is just one bit of my 9 patch, right? Now we need the other ones to make the checkerboard, as it were. So we have our neutrals here. I want my neutral in the center, my scraps on the end. So now we have all of them all put aside. So now this is when we just take our one strip of our neutrals going in the middle, and then we take our scraps, and again we do the exact same thing, but we do it on both sides. So I'm going to put that there. My 3-inch, I'm going to continue that along. Okay, so I'm going to take my pins. My 2.5 inch is perfect, as you can see. Just leaving a small little sliver between them. Scrappy. Okay, now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sewing that there, okay, like that, along the edge. So pretend this is sewn, I have all my bits. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lift this up. I'm going to lift these up, and then, so they're lifted up. Then I'm going to come back, and right opposite of that, I'm going to put these. You might want to be careful of your color placements on these. Do you see that? So I'm just going to go right along there, and I'm going to, you see, I'm going to sew one side, I'm going to sew one side down, and then I'm going to come back, and I'm going to put the other side on the opposite side of this scrappy bit. The 3-inch, remember 3 inches, 3 inches. So I'm going to place one there, sew it. I'm going to come back and I'm going to place one there and sew it. And so there will be the centers of my 9 patch. You see that? And it's scrappy. All different things. We can pull all different things. So I'm going to just continue sewing this strip here. So just as we had done, these were in the middle, this neutral is going to be in the middle. So what we're going to do is I've sewn down all of these, and being careful to your placement. Maybe you don't want 2 of the same because they're may be in the same. They're going to be in the same block. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my other bits, my 3-inch. Make sure you don't do your 2.5 inch. Your 3-inch long line, right opposite, totally opposite, and you can see how well that lines up. This piece lines up with that one. 1/4 inch. I'm going to stitch on the top here, and again I'm just going to place my 3-inch along onto my center piece here. I'm going to flop that up, and being careful of my color placements for your scraps. You want it nice and scrappy. I'm just going to place that on here, and again, if it's a little bit skewed, you don't have to worry because we're cutting off a little tiny bit to get our perfect 2.5 inch, remember? So edge. 1/4 inch, pinch and pull. I have a couple left over for my next lot. Again, I'm going to go over. I'm going to go this time, as you can see, my seams want to be pressed out. So I'm going to go over carefully, nudge all individually my seams out like that, and then I'm going to subcut. I'm going to trim that up. I'm going to subcut this into 2.5 inch units right there. Here is my scrappy strip set. Okay, scrappy strip set. Look at that. I'm going to do the exact same thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trim up the edge with all of the rubbishes on the selvage edge, and then I'm going to find my 2.5 inch mark. I'm going to make sure everything is nice and straight. This is nice and straight. It's not skewed. It's not going a bit wonky in our stitching. That's nice and straight. And then I'm just going to trim off that bit there, just that there, and I'm just going to continue cutting my 2.5 inch, the inside or the outside of my 9. Let's do it this way. And again, because we've ironed our seams, I want this one, because we've ironed our seams, press them one way, these nest, and here I am just making a simple 9 patch. So I take that way, but then I have 2 left over. So now I can just continue cutting my strips. As you see that, I can continue cutting my strips, and I can figure it out as I go along. Now again, I'm going to be making half of my blocks this colorway, scrappy and gray, and then scrappy and black and white. So I have to figure out as I go along making my 16, just to begin with, how, like I said, as I go along making our strip sets. So I'm going to be making 16 of these. So there you go. You have a scrappy way to make, look at that. This was a fairly long-winded tutorial, but I think you get what a lovely arrangement you get, very pleasing with not as much, cutting out each individual piece there. So I do hope you make your blocks and you enjoy it, either just a plain old strip set way, which is super, super simple, 2 colors, using either jelly rolls or your yardage or your fat quarters. And then this one, just be careful when you're sewing the 2.5 inch, because I'm sure when I sew that together, I will have a 6.5 inch square that's probably, well, it's not sewn together yet, but most probably it's going to be nice 6.5 inches. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial, folks. So there you go, have at it. You're going to be making 9 patches in your sleep. All right, see ya, bye.